My name is Dace. I'm from the University of Bath, and I'll tell you a bit about what we have done about linking Pure with other systems and what benefits and challenges we have seen as a result. So just a bit of background. Bath is a very beautiful historical city in the southwest of England, and it was a town already in the Roman times as a spa town, so hence the name as well, Bath. University is slightly less scenic, but we have some beautiful views. We are a fairly new university. We just celebrated 50th anniversary. We have about 1,500 academic staff and about 17,000 students. This is our Pure. Content in Pure, just to give you an idea of where we are in terms of releases and in terms of the data volume. In terms of publication data, we also have about 14,000 full texts into Pure. So going back to the implementation and what we wanted from Pure, when we set out a business case, we really wanted an all-singing, dancing system that would hold all our data together from very outset. We wanted to bring as many data as we could about the research. Our main driver, as for many UK universities, was the ref and managing the ref submission. And we really wanted Pure for easier, quicker reporting and real-time reporting. In terms of the timeline, we wrote our business case in 2011, and then I went out for tender in early 2011. We signed a contract in July and started implementation in September. And then between September and January, when our installation went live internally, we are internally hosted, we worked out what data we would bring in and what legacy data we would bring in. We brought all the data in between January and April, and then went live in July to all customers. We did some training with some communications in the spring and summertime, and we achieved our milestone of being able to do the mock ref submission in September 2012. The approach we took was quite structured. We have an advisory board to inform our strategic decisions. That was chaired by our Pro VC for research. And we also had representation of all the stakeholder groups of finance, HR, student data, strategic planning, comms, and so on. And then we had an operational group as well of people supporting the actual implementation. In terms of resource, we had one FTE project manager. We had one data administrator who also, along other tasks, did Pure. And we had 0.6 FTE system developer. And we brought in external resources as and when needed in terms of other teams setting up data views. I'm sure you all have something like that. It pretty much replicates the Huddersfield's model as well. It's all the usual suspects that we integrated with. We did have a connector to our publications repository as well, because at the time we thought Pure wasn't robust enough to have to serve as a repository. In terms of the sort of timelines and the focus of our implementation, that sort of gives you a quick idea where our head was. So to start with, we really wanted to get the legacy data in and get things set up and make the basic functionality available. But then it's very much about reporting for us. And also at the time, we wanted to implement the awards management and application management. How did we do? Fairly well to start with. We implemented, I brought in our legacy data, we set up data views, rolled out Pure on timescales, and we managed to set our initial reports we wanted to do and do the ref submission. We decided that we would not go with the award management, so we scrubbed that. And then there was some delay with implementing Pure reports for the part of HR processes, where all our academics are required to do Pure reports in order to have their performance management reviews. The big delay for us was the portal. We launched only last year, 5 years later, but now we have the standard Pure portal as well. And as Karen said in the previous presentation, although we can report on data, it's not really, we are not there in terms of reporting on something that will actually help with the strategic planning yet. So that's something still for us an open question as well. So since the original implementation, the seasons came and went, we have added more data to Pure. We did an academic survey 1 year in after implementation to see what people thought of Pure. And the feedback was that although they liked it and it's web-based and all that, it was seen as a research office system, as a ref management system. So, and it needed to be embedded more in the university processes. So we worked very hard for the last few years since then to get more data in, get more professional teams involved. We have press office putting press and media data in. We bring in equipment data from our finance system. We have international office putting their funding schemes in on collaborators. And also data sets. We put data sets in and then take it out. So at the moment, the current setup we have is we still sync on nightly basis from the main systems. We are also bringing in locations for people and phone numbers and that information. And then we output that data onto the Pure portal, and also library catalog harvests that data. And then we have people using APIs to access our data to populate data archive from metadata in Pure, and also to populate university web pages to make them more customizable. So in terms of benefits we have seen of all of this, first thing is the main purpose that we wanted the data to be in one place. That's been real benefit for us because we were able to retire legacy systems we had before. So that's we don't need to maintain those anymore. We have reduced duplication, and it's a data entry at one point. We have moved from paper to online reporting and data entry. As a result, we have seen time savings and efficiency increase in terms of data entering, but also in terms of reporting on data. And we have more time to actually focus on the content and on the job. We are able to report on data that we didn't have before or would have taken a very long time to put together. For example, publications linked to funding and that sort of thing. And we are seeing increased ability to share data because of that data being together and ability to pull the data quicker together. We have also seen, because we bring this data into Pure, it's increased visibility of the data, which has made massive improvements to the increased data quality in the source systems, and ability to surface hidden data that was previously not available. So that's resulted in more accurate reporting to the funders. That's resulted to increased usability of the data. And the ability to automatically bring in start and end dates for staff means that we don't need to manually maintain those profiles. And academics, because they can see the data, they are more interested to increase the quality of the data as well. And another sort of benefit is having been able to embed Pure in our processes because of the systems being linked up. So as a result of that, Pure has plays a significant role in HR processes in terms of performance review. Our pre-award team has a greater visibility of the application data because all academics are now forced to put applications into the central system if they want to see it out in the on the performance review report. So we have more complete data as well as a result. And we also have much better working relationships with other teams, especially with the library that we didn't work before we started implementing Pure. So that is a real asset in our eyes. it's not all smooth sailing, and there are some drawbacks and challenges as a result. To do with data quality. For example, to update data, it takes longer time because you need to go back to the source system and then sync the data in. And it requires somebody in another team to make the change. Also, because we have brought in data that were collected originally for a different purpose, perhaps, it means that it's not exactly used the way we would like to use it or display it in Pure, especially in terms of our finance data. And also, it means that people collecting the data will be asked to add more information and collect more information just for the use in Pure that they wouldn't necessarily collect for their own use. So there is a requirement on their time to do that. There are also technical challenges in sometimes bringing in data if there are different organizational structures in each system and so on. And less technical is the issue with lack of business rules in some processes around university, because, for example, in terms of how visiting or honorary staff are recorded, which has then effect on Pure and how we bring data in and how we make those decisions. And we have also no view about some data on how complete it is. So although we bring in something, we don't really know if it's the whole data. And we know that some data will never be perfect. And there are different pressures when you link together different systems. So if they make changes in another system, they don't necessarily always consider Pure, and that might have implications of how our syncs work or sometimes don't. It's also about ownership of data. So having moved from CMS to Pure Portal, we have taken away the sort of effort that, say, a comms team would need to do by maintaining individual profiles. However, now we have had a discussion of who should be maintaining Pure profiles, because we would still need to see it as a comms role. But because it's in Pure and it's with research office, it's a less clear necessarily. And also academics would see data in Pure as Pure data rather than data being owned by other teams across university. And then the final challenge would be about the repository. So when we implemented, we had a connector, but with introduction of Pure Portal, we retired our repository. So all our publication data are in Pure only. But that has also had a consequence on the library team, who didn't necessarily consider how much time it would take to do testing compared to the previous repository. So those are the sort of consequences that you come across only when you start working with that. However, overall, we think benefits totally outweigh the drawbacks, and we are very happy that we are bringing that much data in. I'll just briefly mention the external systems and what data we do bring in. So we do manually bring in data publication data from different databases, and also using the BibTeX upload file that academics really like, that option. And then we have some jobs running to bring in the metrics data and the information about publishers' policies. That data is Pure data is harvested by some external repositories. Ethos is in bracket because we are working on setting that up. And then there are systems that we also push the data out as and when needed, and those are mostly to do with the funder systems. So when I was putting this slide together, I was quite struck with how much we are doing around outputs compared to other systems. So when we talk about internal data, it's all different types of data, whereas when we talk about external systems and how we use that information, it's very much focused on publications, which is quite interesting for me. In terms of what benefits we see, so being able to bring in data, that's really about efficiency and time saving. It fits nicely with the academic workflow because they don't need to key it in. And it's better data quality as well, if you can bring it in at the right time. In terms of Sherpa Romeo and Scopus, that's actually for us is nice to have. When I asked the library, so what is the benefit, they said, oh, well, we can do it, why not do it? But they actually go to the source data for this information because that's more reliable, and also because in terms of Scopus, we never aggregate to a person or to organizational level, because we don't think that's representative in terms of metrics. In terms of repositories that harvest our data, that is about surfacing our content into the right places, so to make sure that other academics can find that information, but also about funder compliance and meeting those requirements. And that's those last systems, that's really about funder compliance. So I think in UK in general, we are really focused on meeting the funder requirements and also benchmarking. So to conclude, this is what we had in mind to start with. I think this is kind of what we have a bit more. So it works, it is connected, the bolts sometimes come a bit loose, but by and large it does the job. But sometimes when our privacy asks for something that would have taken us months to report on previously, and we can do it in 10, 20 minutes, this is how we really feel. So we find Pure really powerful in that sense. Having said that, I would completely echo what Karen said earlier in the presentation, because we can do this data reporting to meet the funder compliance. However, the next step on reporting on the collaborations and the China question, that is a big deal for us as well. And we are not currently looking at CRMs and what we can do there, but that would be a very interesting conversation for us too. Thank you very much.
You can actually hang out with me for a few minutes if you want, because we have plenty of time for questions. So I'd like to open it up to the audience first. Any questions for Dace? Well, they're not getting out of here that easily, so. Let me check online really quick just to see, because we still have, believe it or not, a few dedicated souls who have been with us the entire day. So thank you guys very much for remaining online. And if you want to ask a question online, go to Ask a Question feature. None yet. Any from the audience? Yeah, great. Just wait, the mic's right behind you.
Thanks, Dace. Just a question. When you were integrating systems and pulling information in, did that require development effort? And if so, how many developers and resources?
So we had 0.6 FTE developer in research office working on Pure. And then when we worked with specific systems, we did take some of the time from developers working on those systems, but it was mainly done by one person with some help from other systems. In terms of, so that's in terms of setting up data views. In terms of getting our legacy data in, with publications we had no problem at all because our library validates every record. So we didn't actually have a single error when moving all the publication data in. So we also moved in some esteem indicators that required some data tidying, but in terms of development, yeah, it was 0.6 FTE mostly.
I have a question about your rollout on campus, and I think the personal user engagement has been a real theme of the conference. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went, any highs and lows?
Okay, so we didn't do end user training. We did talks at every department. We communicated via email and sort of messages that this is coming. We did upload all the legacy data we could before rolling it out, and then send an email saying, can you log in and check that your data is correct. And we monitored how many people were logging in and sort of targeting those as well. Because we were doing the mock REF exercise, it was in people's interests to check in and make sure that their information was correct. We did super user training, so Atira did that for us. But in terms of the early implementation, that was really very much seen as a research office system. So the engagement wasn't really there until we incorporated it in other processes, especially with the reporting for performance review. That was a big drive. Then the open access, and now the portal. That's been a big shift as well, because now everyone wants to update their portal.
Great. Interesting to hear about that evolution. Oh, great. Simon, up front. We have a question here.
I think if I've understood correctly, you were saying that the performance management was the drive for researchers to actually get their information in there.
Yeah.
Do you have a feel for the uptake? So are researchers putting in 100% of their applications and activities because they want the benefit, or is there a sector that are just ignoring the whole thing?
So because the way it's set up, it's basically a customized FAR, which was, so it's the faculty activity report, an earlier version of that. And in order for them to, and that's being run in Pure and then attached to their performance review form. So it's in their best interest to add the information they want to present to the board and the line manager and so on. So that was a big drive. I think there is always the conflict between, because Pure is so big now and the information is used for so many different purposes. For example, in terms of activities, people would put the important stuff for performance review, but then for impact, we want to collect even more stuff. And then there is always question how much you put in. But I think we have a fair collection. It is across the board. Yeah, in terms of activities, it's hard to say because only academics actually know where they have been and what they have done. But it's an important part of the engagement with Pure, and it has been a big stake for them to get information in. So.